Alright, I have a review today for something I've needed for quite a while. It's a new controller. My old controller is very old. I was considering getting an Xbox controller, like, for my PC, but I kind of went in a different direction. So, first here, I'm going to show you what I've been using for many years. What's this? It's Logitech, and it looks fairly similar to a PlayStation controller. It's got plenty of buttons, and it's good for some purposes, but if you're playing, I don't know, certain types of games, it's not really, it's not like any other controllers. Let's put it that way. It has these shoulder buttons, which is kind of cool. And these things are buttons themselves. There are a lot of buttons on here. So if you need a lot of buttons, this works. But you can toggle this to be analog or digital. I don't know. No, actually, you can turn it on or off. That's what it is. Anyway, what I got, I'm going to be unboxing. Get that out of the way. Before you ask, yes, this box is upside down, but let's not worry about that. All you need is nails. There it is. Retro power, supposed to look like Nintendo power, I'm assuming. And these are classic controllers. I wouldn't call the Nintendo 64 classic one, but whatever. So, it has these 5 controllers, and this is on eBay for $42. Pretty good price. So, I went and picked it up. This was, instead of getting a wireless Xbox controller for the PC, because I figured this was more, I don't know, it was simpler than trying to figure out button combinations for that. So this is what I went with, and I think it'll work pretty well. So let me go ahead and open this up. Give me just a minute. Okay, this is the back of the box here. Obviously you can see its intended use. But a 6-foot cord plus a 10-foot extension, that's really long for a controller. I guess if you want a very classic replay, you can do it at, like, sit at your TV and sit back on your couch or whatever. And it's compatible with PC and some other stuff on there. And these, other than this one, I don't know about this one. I've never really seen a 6-button Sega controller, so I can't really say that if that's very similar to it. It doesn't look very similar to me, but this I know is very similar. That's almost identical. I can't see any difference based on the picture, and those are very iconic. And yes, accurate. So let's look at the actual products here. Well, they're packed well. Gonna have some trouble getting them out of here. There we go, there's one. A little shaky. Makes some sounds when you shake it. Never a good sign, but we'll wait to see how it performs. Okay. It's a little light, but it seems pretty. Seems good. Seems like it'll work pretty well for certain types of games. The color looks off in this. This blue on here, it's doing something weird to the camera, and it looks lighter than it actually is. That's a dark blue. But for some reason, it looks really light on here. That's really weird. And I read a review that it has this connector on the bottom that you would normally connect the memory pack to. It just doesn't have any circuitry in there. But it does have the retainer clip, which I'm assuming is for if you had like some kind of accessory that mounts to the actual controller and uses that to support itself. This one's a little harder to get out. Come on out of there, come on. Alright, now it's been a long time since I've held a regular Nintendo controller. Oh, it's very light. But these are very true to their actual thing. They're even rubberized. It seems very light. But I'm sure it'll work. It's newer technology, so obviously it's going to be lighter. Come on. That one does not want to come out there. I guess this is a testament to Electro Power's packing. They're in there. Good. They have no problem with shipping. Some people said that the stuff was damaged on arrival, but I don't know what you could be doing to this box to damage it. God. Alright. Do it the easy way. Okay. So, Super Nintendo controller. I've never had one, but it also seems a little light. We'll see how it performs though. And this is PlayStation, and I have to say this one actually feels very similar to the actual PlayStation controller. It's got some weight to it. I don't know that there's actually, I don't think there's any kind of rumble mechanisms in there, so I'll have to read the information on that, but which I don't, does it even have any information? Oh well, doesn't matter. And speaking of comparison, there are definitely some, that's pretty close. My old controller and this new one both have dual shoulder buttons. It's just a slight difference in the markings and that start button and I guess the analog activation button. These are buttons instead of this, which I like this better than this, but they're trying to be accurate, so points for that. So let's go ahead and give them a try. I'll let you know how they perform. Alright, so I went ahead and finished my review of the Retro Power classic game controllers, which I showed you here. You don't need to see the box again. Anyway, and overall, pretty good. Here's the classic Nintendo controller. As I said, very accurate to the original. I don't remember if it was light. That was a long time ago when I actually had a classic Nintendo controller. But worked out pretty well. Just played it just today. And this one, Super Nintendo controller, worked perfectly. And by the way, I tested these with the actual system, so yes, emulators. So played the Super Nintendo on the Super Nintendo emulator, worked out fine. This one for Sega worked just fine. One thing to note is this is a 6-button ABCXYZ 6-button controller. Whenever I had a Sega Genesis a million years ago, whatever year it was, I only had the 3-button controllers. So, and those were quite a bit larger than that. So I don't know if it was just there's a difference in those, and if like the actual 6-button controllers were lighter when they actually made them, but it seemed light and it seemed small. I mean, this is a pretty tiny controller. I mean, this is my hand, this is controller. So when you're trying to hold this small thing, it seems a little small. So that was about the only negative I could see from this whole package. This PlayStation worked fine, no issues with it. From the emulator. But again, I've never had an actual PlayStation, so I don't know how true to the original it was. This one, my favorite one actually, Nintendo 64. This one gives you a lot of, I'm not sure what the word is, flexibility, not really flexibility, that's the wrong word. originality, maybe, because the actual games that use this, they make use of all this functionality. The thumbstick you can reproduce anywhere, but these buttons, the C buttons and the AB buttons, this is hard to do in any other controller in this way. There's not a lot of controllers that have, you know, 6 buttons that are in a row like this that you can easily find that are away from other buttons. And particularly in the game of Killer Instinct, which uses high and low, and then it's fast, medium, and hard. I think that's what it was for the punches and kicks. You need 6 buttons to do a lot of those moves. So this helps a lot with that aspect, I guess. And then plus, you know, having the trigger, that's pretty original to Nintendo 64. This Z button trigger on the bottom. So as I said, it's my favorite one. But I can't really, there's nothing I can say about this that's a bad point. The only one is that the Sega Genesis controller is a little small. And I'm not sure if you can hear this. It sounds like it's cheap, but I don't know. I take pretty good care of my electronics, so I don't think it's going to break. But who knows what the test of time will show for these. There's no way to show you that in this video. So overall, I would say goodbye. I don't know how to put it any better. It was like $42, so that's like $8 each controller. I would recommend this package. Let's put it that way. So there we go.